We only act 6 and 8 years old.
Usually.
All right, it is 11 o'clock. Time to start the meeting. Rick.
And we're recording on YouTube?
We are live on YouTube.
Yep.
So we should
Is it recording though?
All right. Yeah, we should be recording, at least as far as our tests have concerned. Go ahead, do the welcomes.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody. This is our second sort of on live stream. This is a webinar, which is why you probably don't see multiple pictures of everybody's video cameras. Today, I think we sort of going to simplify the presentation to CS3 from last month, and then we'll be happy to answer questions, providing that they aren't too complex for users. So we're not sure how we're going to filter this out, being our second journey into this. So as it is, I'll let Rick, you ready to take over and do the presentation? Yeah,
basically we're going to start like we did before with the CS3 and how to, what we're going to cover is once it comes out of the box, we're going to...
Excuse me, Rick, before we go forward. Also, one last thing, repeat for the people who are viewing, you can raise your hand on the Zoom chat so we know that maybe you have a question that we can take through audio, or you can send a text message to us so we can actually respond that way. We also have a channel, Marklin Trains, that the live streaming is being viewed through. For those who can't join in on the Zoom meeting, just go to YouTube and hopefully find Marklin Trains, or use the link that had been emailed to you previously. Thanks. Sorry, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to start with basically when the CS3 comes out of the box. Not going to focus on a whole lot about it until we get to loading a locomotive. So I can go ahead and start that right now. When you take your CS3 out of the box and you get it plugged in, it's going to boot up with this screen. It's going to ask you what language you want. I'm going to select English. Right there, EN. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to check this box here so that the startup assistant doesn't start every time I boot up the CS3. You should go through it just to learn a little bit about it if it's your very first time, you've never had one, but you don't have to, and that will make this check mark down in the lower left will make it so that you do not have to see that every time you do a boot up. So I've selected English. This is the startup assistant. I selected so it wouldn't show it from now on, even though it already started with the startup assistant. Right now, I can just close with the X. And this is the default screen you get with your CS3. None of this stuff comes with your CS3. This is just an example of a track plan. At the top, you get your keyboard and your system menus and stuff. But what we're going to focus on is down here in the locomotive inventory. So what you want to do, if you have a MFX locomotive, we're going to make this really simple at first. If you have an MFX locomotive, all you have to do is put it on the track. Once you put it on the track, you hit the stop bar, and the stop light will go out. You can push on the stop in the upper right-hand corner or up in left-hand corner and make it go white background like it is right now. And I already have a locomotive on the track, and this is what you'll see. It's loading this locomotive because it's MFX. MFX decoders are bidirectional communication to the central station, so it loads itself. It will load all the icons and features, and there it is. It's the French 241. A new locomotive will have the red box around it that it just registered, and it usually puts it in one of the first boxes of your inventory list so you can find it easily for the first time. You don't have to search through your inventory where it loaded. So if you just want to go ahead and run it and play with it at first, you certainly can. All you do is you drag and drop. You put your finger on the box and you pull it to one side. I just pulled it to the right side right now. I can get rid of my inventory by sliding the box down. And if you select a locomotive icon, you can pull out the tab that has all the functions for the locomotive. So I don't think you guys can see my pointer, but I think you can see the little black dot. These are headlights. The first function is headlights, that's F0, and then it goes down. The next one down is F1. Next one after that, F2, F3, F4, all the way to the right, top to bottom, right to left. So this basically tells me I've turned on the lights. You may not know what all these icons do right now, but in the back of the pamphlet, I believe, that you get with the CS3, or you can get it online at marklin.com, the instruction manual. It gives you an explanation of these icons. Although some of the icons have changed in updates lately, there have been new ones added. You can still get an idea of what they are, and if you really wanted to research it in the manual, but if not, you can figure out what they are by the icon or just listening to it. So I have headlights on the 241, which is actually right behind me. You can barely see it right here where my finger is. Unfortunately, I don't have a good camera to show that. I can turn the cab lights on. I will blow a short whistle, and I can get the locomotive running. Do some steam sounds, but they're fairly loud, so I'm not going to run them for very long. Oops, and apparently we have a problem. Okay, so this is one good thing to show you. There's an overload situation, so I have a short on the track somewhere.
Okay, in the meantime, while you look at that, we do have a question or we do have a comment. It says, please let everyone know that an MFX locomotive does not register. Actually, that is probably a typo. MFX locomotives do register. It is the FX decoders that do not self-register into the CS3. When you enter a locomotive into the system, you have to use either you can use a database providing it's available. If not, you're going to have to enter it manually and make sure the decoder is set for MM, which is short for Marklin Motorola, or DCC if you're using a DCC locomotive. Yes. Again, it's the MFX locomotives that register. It is not the FX decoders that register.
And I'm going to cover loading a FX and DCC locomotive after this. I was starting with the simple ones, and we'll get to the slightly more complex ones. So the 241 is running around the layout. I'm just going to stop it so I don't have to watch it. And basically that is that for an MFX locomotive. Like I said, it loads itself. Curtis said it. All the functions load. I can get into the CVs, the configuration variables, if I wanted to. They don't have to be on the programming track. MFX locomotives do not have to be on the programming track to edit the locomotive. FX locomotives and DCC locomotives do need to be on the programming track. DCC with the POM, I think you can do that on the main track, but I would put on the programming track anyway. So anyway, to load a locomotive that is not MFX, there's two ways to do it. You can go to the plus button here, or to the MFX locomotive, or the edit screen. And edit screen gives you several functions. Right now, I'm just going to go with add locomotive. And it comes up with a blank screen to set up a locomotive. First, we'll start with the upper left-hand corner where it says decoder type in the info tab, decoder type DCC. I will go which is Marklin Motorola Protocol. At this point, that opens up the next box that so you can access it, the model database. The model database gives you access to the locomotives that are loaded into your central station. So I can search for a locomotive by the type. I can search by the article number. All I have to do is type in the item number that I want. 37990. For those of you who don't know what that is, it should be a big boy. So I can load a big boy in there. If I click OK, it will load the big boy into the central station. Click OK again. There it is in the central station. Now, it gives me the option, we'll do this again for a different locomotive. We'll go Marklin Motorola. If I don't know the address, well, if I do know the address, I can select the address in the address box, the number of functions it's going to have, 8 or 16, because these are generally FX decoders and dip switch decoders. You only get up to 16 functions. I can give it a new name in the lower left, give it a new name, type in whatever name I want. The diesel or the locomotive type, electric, diesel, steam, miscellaneous, and the speedometer reading, what I want the speedometer to read. And once you get all that, you click the check mark OK, and it's set up as that locomotive. If I want to change the icon for a previously loaded icon, either in a picture form that I did or the icons that are loaded in the database, I can do that. All you do is you click on the the default icon with the question marks. I have changed my picture. You're not going to get the icon picture that I have here. I wasn't set up for that. I forgot to change it back. But all you do is you click on the picture in the middle with the 3 question marks, and it brings you to your icon list. And I can select any icon I want that's in the list. Now, right now, it looks really out of focus and not very sharp, but you got to remember this is going to be a tiny icon on your screen, so it will represent the locomotive fairly well. The next tab over is going to be the setup tab. And in this tab, you can set obviously everything it says. World of operation mode, it gives you some default cab views. The world of operation is cab views. We're not going to worry about that right now. My minimum speed I can set to whatever I want, which would be the speed it starts out with. 255 is a max speed. A lot of locomotives, speed of 255, if they're a heavier locomotive, they may roll off the track at that top speed. And if you have kids running the layout, it's good to turn this down. You can go plus or minus, or click on the center and add a speed you want, just to slow it down. There's an acceleration delay. An acceleration delay is when the locomotive starts from 0 speed and gets up to the speed you set it to. And the delay is not really in time. It's more of a graphical calculation. So you'll probably have to play with it a little bit. I think around 20 to 25 is good. The same goes for the next one down, the braking delay. The same thing. We usually have the braking delay a little bit shorter than the acceleration delay, because the way Curtis and I operate our trains is we have brake modules on our layouts, and we like to use 2 sections of the slowdown module, 2 sections of straight track, whether they're 188s or 172s or a combination of both. They're about the same. And we like the train to stop within those 2 sections of track. If you want a longer braking delay and you have 3 sections of track, you can make this a higher number. I think around 20 on this is about average for what we do. Your volume will not have a use because, again, we're setting up a Marklin Motorola decoder, and it's non-sound generally, so volume is not accessible, even though it says you can change it. It's not going to do anything because the decoder doesn't have any sound.
Okay, Rick, before we get any further in that, let's just kind of want to get a couple of these questions out of the way that
Okay.
are more involved with let's get some of the simple ones out of the way. We do have some questions that I'm going to delay because we're not on that topic yet. One person, DV, is asking, what if he digitizes originally an analog locomotive? So this might be pertinent on loading locomotives before we get
Yes,
to the
this will be pertinent on the model database. It's not going to be in the database because only Delta and digital locomotives are in the database from Marklin. If you retrofit a locomotive, you can usually find an icon that will be close to it, if not the same. Also, in a future webinar, we may cover how to put icons into the Central Station 3. It's fairly simple. We've covered it in our digital newsletters, so you can always go back and refer to that. So you're not going to get an icon unless there's already a locomotive that Marklin has made digital, or you've taken your own picture and uploaded them to the Central Station.
Yeah, and I'm not too sure when this or what this question, there may be reference to loading it into the system. Decoders come in a variety of tastes. You can get a DCC, you can get a standard, maybe an old programmable decoder, but there are also available MFX style decoders, which will load and register into your system. However, as Rick was mentioning, these do not have their own icons because basically you're putting in a generic decoder. So you have to put in your own icon at one point. Okay, does that kind of cover that question, Rick? We also have another question regarding MS2 locomotives from Karach. His question is, if you have lokes registered in an MS2, can they be downloaded or transferred to the CS3?
No. If you plug in a mobile station 2 to your central station, your mobile station 2 becomes a slave and the central station is a master, and the slave will always use the database from the master. So if you do not have it loaded in your central station 3, then you will not see it at all until you load it in your central station 3. And a lot of people say, well, my locomotive disappeared because when I plugged it in central station 3, but when they unplug it and plug it back into the track box, it appears again because then it uses its own database. The slave will always use the database of the master.
And okay, so one more question. There is a question, Lewis Eagleheart. Is there a database on icon images for Marklin trains?
There is a third party that you can download many icons, a lot of which Marklin has never made the model for, and it will probably slow down your processor a little bit when you're loading icons. But if you want to go that way, that's fine. It's not going to hurt anything to do that. I don't have the information right now on that, but I know there's a website that that does allow you to take icons. You can also download the file and then get rid of the icons you don't want, and go that way if you want it, and then upload it to the central station. One other feature that I just want to touch on, I'm not going to go into depth, but when you're setting up a new locomotive and you're in this screen, you can, once it's loaded, you click OK and it's loaded. Okay, now you can get back into the edit mode for edit locomotives and get back into the screen. Now you can test the functions here on the left. Okay, and because you're loading it manually, it did not give me function icons. If you load from the database, it will give you function icons here on the left. I can go back real quick to the big boy. It loaded all these icons here to the left because that's what was in the database. It gave the address of 16 or 40 with 16 functions. And right now I can change this icon to, oops, sorry, I gotta do it this way. There we go, big boy. Okay, so I changed the icon to the correct icon. That's how easy it is to do. Now, if I want to, if you go to the setup screen, and I'm only going to touch on this, I'm not going to go into depth, is I can get in and edit the icons for this locomotive. And all it will do is change the picture of that icon. So you saw before in the second locomotive I loaded, it gives me icons of F1, F2, F3, F4, F5. I can go in and on the setup page, I can change these icons. If you know what the functions are, if you know F1 is going to be the firebox light, let's say, I can make it a firebox light. Okay, so that's how simple it is. Again, I don't want to get too deep into that because that's not advanced, but that's a little bit medium. You can always play with it. And if you don't like it or if you screw it up, you can always delete it while you're loading it. Once you load it, you can always go ahead and delete it. A reset loco will work with FX locomotives. A dip switch locomotive will not be able to be reset because there's nothing to set. So loco reset will delete it from the central station, whether it's MFX, the Marklin Motorola, or a dip switch locomotive. It will delete it from the central station and you'll have to reload it. MFX will reload by itself. Loco card means that if you're loading it onto one of the locomotive cards that you slide into the card slot of the central station 3. So
okay, Rick, sorry. Before
no, I think that's about it for now.
Well, I think you're on. Can you just kind of cover this quickly? Because I don't know if I wasn't able to listen because I'm watching the streams. Can you please show how to lower the master volume during the presentation? I think we're talking about the master volume of a locomotive's decoder, not necessarily each function, but a way to turn everything down. Yes,
and that was back in this setup screen of a locomotive. You have volume, and that will lower the volume of the locomotive, the master volume. That will lower the volume of everything. Generally, the locomotives come with the volume all the way up to 255. So yes, some of them are too loud, and that's all there is to it. Even if you have a locomotive that you've loaded that has sounds, if it's FX, which I really don't think there are any, I could be mistaken, but I don't think there are any, that will lower the volume.
Okay, let's see.
What else do we got?
We have, so let's get more questions here. We got one question from Tim Stump. Will the CS3 work with railcom? Also, how does it handle the old LGB MTS decoders? So well, the question.
Yeah, the MTS decoders, they are so old that the technology has surpassed them very much. So
are those essentially DCC decoders?
They are essentially DCC. They work on DCC, but it's hard to explain. I'm not sure exactly how it works or how to explain it, but the central station, because it realizes it's in a DCC decoder, it sends out packets of information, but the decoder only receives a new packet at its next speed step, I believe, is the best way to explain it. So what will happen is you will turn on a, say, the headlight, and you'll get the speed going, and the headlight will be on, but then it gets to the next speed step, and the headlight turns off. But until the decoder can receive the next packet it can receive, which will be the next speed step, then the headlight will come back on. So it's a little bit finicky on older MTS decoders for that reason. The technology has surpassed it by miles, basically. What was the other?
Okay.
The railcom, you want to handle that one, Curtis?
Well, railcom basically, well, yeah, that's always a difficult question because you're dealing with third-party software that as long as there's sort of compliance as far as the standards go, it should function with it. Basically, if you're trying to get any kind of control You know, you're only getting half of an answer here, because the other side is you got to look at your software. We don't have the overview on being able to configure any kind of software, everybody's software. So how it configures, basically accessing a CS3 is done generally through, right now, it's done through the IP numbers, because it's just another computer. So you're linking one computer to the next, and configuration at the software level is something, you know, we can't answer all those questions. So it's something, it's compliant as long as it's a sort of, I don't know if it's NMRA standards that we're concerned with, but it is a standard. So I would check that out as well. We have one question is, what was the configuration tab on the central station next to the setup on Locomotive? The configuration tab, we didn't really cover right now, because that is sort of getting into advanced features. That's where your CV values are set and adjusted if you need to actually work with CV values.
And sorry,
How does the CS3 work with ESU version 3 or version 4 decoder log pilots? They work fine.
Yeah.
Just make sure you configure them for Marklin Motorola protocols. If it's a Marklin Motorola decoder, if it's a DCC decoder, make sure you set the decoder type for DCC.
And somebody asked a question, are loco cards from the CS2, CS3 compatible? Will it be able to record a loco from CS2 and load it into CS3? Yes, you can do that. Those cards are transferable from a mobile station to a central station, either 2 or 3.
Quick answer here. Gerald Lynch, can you connect more than 2 mobile station 2s on a CS3? Yes, you can. However, you only have 2 mobile station ports on the front of your device. To connect more to the rear, you probably want to have a terminal box. The part number on that is 60145 now, right? I believe.
Yeah, 145 is what it is now.
Can sounds that only occur when the loco is running be tested? Yeah, pretty much. You can test it through the edit window if you wanted to.
Well, tested how? I mean, in the configuration screen, I think you would have to turn on the locomotive sound to test the brake squeal, so to say. You can't just turn on the brake squeal here in the edit screen. It's only going to work when the locomotive is running. That's how it's mapped. Okay, Robert's asking what software is compatible with the CS3. I take it TPL is not. Well, we don't know. We don't have TPL. We don't use any other software to control our Central Station 3, because that would be a third-party software, and we don't have the capability of testing everything. We stick with Marklin products ourselves. Let's see, what do we have here?
Well, let's congratulate Pete. I guess he got the Big Boy 4014 that just was released.
Oh, nice. His wife wanted it. That's, yeah, good job. I just got mine too.
Can you connect the CS3 to a Wi-Fi setup rather than using a cable connection? Yes, Karach, I did try to answer that one. It really kind of depends on what you're referring to. There's 2 ways I can interpret this question. One, first of all, at its core, the CS3 needs to have a physical connection to an internet or to your router. Whether or not that connection is going to be done with a wireless device, a wireless client is what they're called, or you're going to have to use an actual cable to go to the router. So it's up to you, but the CS3 does require a physical connection to either, a device. It needs to have something plugged into it, because there is not a wireless card inserted internally. All right. Let's see, when appropriate during the session, can you tell us how to program a 55024 switch decoder with a CS3?
That's the LGB. We're going to kind of stick with loading locomotive questions now.
Yeah, John, let's, you can send us an email with that. We can give you maybe more detailed instructions. I'll type up an answer, but I do not have your email address. Yeah, I mean, we can do that maybe at a later session, or just send us a text message or an email at digital@marklin.com, and we can give you more detailed answer at that time. USB Wi-Fi dongle would be supported. That's a comment from Dave. Or Dave, yeah. I have at one point, at least with the CS2, I was able to connect, and this kind of goes back to the Wi-Fi question. I was able to connect a USB Wi-Fi dongle. I believe that's what it was. But that was just to power the dongle. I still needed to make that connection to the Ethernet port on the back of the CS3. So hopefully that question kind of answers, but it's kind of off. So, all right, any other questions here? Are there good and complete instructions to connect the CS3 to the turntable and the transfer table? That's a good question. Part of the problem is the turntable, at least the existing turntable that is available to market, and the transfer table are all sort of pre-digital. Since the CS1 or the sort of setup has changed quite a bit, it is sort of easy to get the CS3 or the turntable, and I don't know about the transfer table, I think Rick covered that, into the CS3. It's just trying to get the hardware configured to operate properly, and that's where the real challenge is.
Yeah, there's no encoder on it. We're hoping the new C-Track turntable will be a little bit more user-friendly. We haven't seen one yet, but we hope that we get one to play with, and that will be much easier. Part of the problem is the old turntable module, the digital module. A lot of times, I don't know why, but I've seen more that are burnt out than work anymore, and there's no way to repair them. There's no way to test that they are burnt out. You don't know if you're doing something wrong or if the module is burnt out. So it's really, we haven't really had much luck with those. There's basically nothing for a transfer table. It would be I have messed around with it with K84s, and you can control it. It's hard to make the stop where you want it to. I didn't have too much success on it. I had some theories, but then I got pulled away doing something else and never revisited it. So if anybody wants to experiment with that, it was a fun little project for a while. What else do we got?
So here's a comment. I recently discovered that you can use DCC in parallel with Marklin Motorola on a CS3.
Yes.
Yes, that's pretty much true. We didn't really say anything about that, but the CS3 is a multi-protocol device. It doesn't mean you can operate one or the other. We have done as shows, we've run 3 gauges using the same controller at the same time. Marklin Motorola and DCC will also run in parallel with each other.
Well, yeah, it was N-Gage, Minitrix, which
Yep.
is DCC, Marklin Motorola, and LGB. 1 gauge and LGB, 2 different times. Also, the mobile station is multi-protocol and will do the same thing. It will run all three protocols simultaneously. It's basically just sending out code. It doesn't care if it's DCC, Motorola, or MFX. It just sends out code, and it does them as it's directed to. And it says we got you mentioned earlier that I missed it. Is there a glossary for the icons? Okay, the icons, the glossary is going to be in the manual for the CS3 that you can download from the Marklin site. And there is a page of icons. There you go, Curtis has it. It's also in the digital book, but these icons have been added to. So at the time of printing, they were current. Now they still have all those icons, but they've added more. So there are some that even I question a little bit, but you can see the icons and what they do if you load a MFX locomotive. So there are many icons here that I could change to. They broke them out into categories: light, sound icons. This one is blue because that happens to be the one that I selected for the squealing brakes, just to get the icon list to come up. There's mechanical icons if there's pantographs going up and down. The upper right-hand corner, bucking, that's a new icon. I've never seen that before. Windows opening and closing, these are mechanical icons. So you got to remember that Marklin makes 5 different gauges. Not all of these icons are applicable in HO. Some of them will be LGB, some of them will be 1 gauge. Obviously, you're not going to have too many windows opening and closing in HO or N or Z. Well, Z is not digital. So common icons are like, obviously what it says is common icons, the ones that you use most. So fortunately, the CS3 does tell you what the icon is and the image of it. And it can help a lot in that respect.
Okay, so geez, we got our ask you questions here, which is good. One question, let's get this one out of the way. Is there any indication that a replacement for CS3 or CS3 Plus is coming in the next year or so? Probably not. We check back on our archives of the newsletter. Our first mention of the CS3 was in what is it, November, December of 2016. So right now it's only been about 4 years. The CS2 was probably in operation for about 9 years before they replaced it. So I think we're still good.
Yeah, and we don't get any information about what's coming out. We have to hear about it in the new items brochures, just like you guys do. We don't get any information about it.
Okay, and I do want to dispel sort of some misinformation here, or at least clarify some information. The comment is, it's a good idea to turn off any protocols you are not using on a particular decoder. As far as protocols go, how the system works, especially with the MFX does, is it looks for a primary protocol first. And if it's not available as a controller, it shifts to the next one. And it finally, so in this instance, the decoder itself will look to see if the controller is MFX compatible. If that is not compatible, then it looks to see if it's a Marklin Motorola protocol, because we're dealing with LGB and Marklin. If that is not available, then it reverts and asks, is this a DCC controller? The switching that is being referred to is basically, you can't turn off the protocols. They're built into the decoder. What you can do is you can prevent it from looking up the other protocols. So in other words, if you have a DCC system and you do not want it to look up to see if it's MFX compatible or Marklin Motorola compatible, you can switch that off so it doesn't search for that. But you cannot turn off the protocols. They are built into the system. They're just existing. It's just whether or not it's going to look for it or not. So I want to get that out of the way. Pete Locomotives, you wrote switching range. I'm not exactly sure what your question is, so please refine on that. John, if you are operating more than 2 locomotives, can you split the screen to show, for example, 4 locomotives on one screen and show the speed controls for locomotives?
Central station.
Yeah, let's assume that's for the central station. You just want to show that screen, how they can actually control more than one.
Basically, the answer is no to that.
To operating more than 2 locomotives?
No, splitting the screen, you can on the iPad. You can't, or a tablet. You can on a tablet.
Okay, well then, yeah. So maybe show them how you can actually control more than just the 2 locomotives if it's not a split screen specifically.
Okay. What you can do is, if you drag your inventory all the way to the top of the screen, it will give you pages of your locomotives, and you can control them individually. If you want to access the functions, you hit the F, and it gives you your functions. And it gives you several pages of functions, giving you 2 rows at a time. So that's how you can access locomotives, more than 2 locomotives. But also you can pull in the sides and have 2 more locomotives going. So you can have several locomotives going at once and controlling them this way if you like. That would be the closest to a split screen. But in the on a tablet, you can split the screen. And well, on the CS2, I don't remember on the CS3. It's been a while since I've hooked up my tablet to it. I'm not entirely sure. I believe that the screen you see is exactly like this that you see on your screen right now, and you can control it that way. So.
Okay, let's see what other questions here. Let's see, that's been answered. That's been answered. The question is, if I want to use the iPad to run the trains via Central Station 3, once I get the Marklin app, does the router have to be in the same room? The Marklin app that's available, at least through Apple, for instance, it is the main station app. That generally was a requirement for the Central Station 2. It doesn't really apply to the Central Station 3, since the Central Station 3 can just use any web browser. As far as having the router in the same room, as long as you have access to the router with, obviously the CS3 and your mobile device, no, it'll work wherever you want, as long as you have connection to it. Let's see, can you use the old mobile station with the CS3? Mobile station 2, yes. The mobile station 1, I don't remember.
I have not tried one. There's so few left out there that work. I think they did work on the CS2. I'm not sure if they work on the CS3.
Yeah, I haven't plugged one in a while.
There is a Richard Phelan, describe the buttons on the right above the test button. I assume you're talking about.
And Robert Frohenfeld says the first MS1 will not work with the CS3.
Okay, thanks, Robert.
Let's see. All right.
I don't know what the above the test.
Are you describing the buttons on the right above the test button?
What test button?
Maybe it's in the setup page, I believe. Quickly, are loco cards from the CS2, CS3 compatible? Yes, it's the same card. They're the same memory cards.
Oh, that's a good one. If I have a train pulled by 3 locomotives, how do I control all 3 simultaneously? That would be a consist or a MU set. In your edit menu, you go to create MU set. And here you can give it a name. And unfortunately, I believe I'm sorry. You can give it a name, and all you have to do is drag and drop the locomotives into the MU set and control it that way. Now, it does not control them as far as it knowing that one is faster than another. You should try and use compatible locomotives that run about the same speed. And once I click OK on this, I'll have a 4th locomotive called Traction, which is the name I did not change. And that's the MU set. Right there. So I can delete that and get rid of it once I'm done doing that. Okay. Pete asked, in the running trains digitally booked, does it show in the system architecture, or it shows in the system architecture, page 201, that you can add a CS1 as well as MS1. So it says you can, and I'm sure you probably could. You know, the Mobile Station 1, I'm sorry, Central Station 1 is so far out of date. There was only, what, one update for that? One physical update and one software update for it. And it's so far out of date, unless I wouldn't use it for anything except a controller if you wanted. But to be honest with you, a tablet's going to be much easier. All in all, just because you have it, you know, you can use it if you want, but a tablet will be much easier.
All right, there's a question above that. I'm planning to install a shadow station staging yard under the layout. How many locomotives can I have running at the same time? Do you speed match locomotives for a MU set? Well, the second part was answered. The first question is basically how many locomotives can you run? That really is dependent on your draw on the locomotives. Incandescent light bulbs, for instance, in passenger cars, going to draw a lot more current than than an LED bulb goes. And frankly, usually in shadow stations, I supply those with their own booster supply. Not that it's all necessary, since mostly in a shadow station, the majority of trains are at a standstill or stopped. You can always look at your voltage ratings that is posted within the CS3, give you an idea of what your draw is per booster or power supply. But the other thing too to be aware of is with digital systems, it's almost less about power, it's more about digital integrity. If you start seeing sort of digital devices not you know, misbehaving, for instance, then there's a good chance that, you know, you could be having not enough feeds. Your digital integrity signal is weakened, so it either needs a feeder, or if that doesn't fix it, then you probably need a booster setup. But as far as running locomotives at the same time, yeah, it's kind of a hard question to answer. You know, you have to test the layout at certain points.
The Central Station is capable of running all your locomotives at once. It's more, can you run all your locomotives at once? Can you control them? What else do we got? I guess we can get into regular general questions now. I think we pretty well covered it, and we're starting to get more questions about other topics.
Oh, so yeah, let's see if we can clarify this, because I'm not really sure. Richard Fillion writes, the test button, he's talking about the test button that is created or shows when you select a sound to test. I guess there's subheadings, running, temporary, and 2 more options. So you want to go over those?
Okay. I know what you're talking about there. What you're talking about is basically the how the button is configured in the Central Station. It's not so much editing the locomotive. You're actually editing the button and how it works. You got a switching function. A switching function is you push the button and it stays on, like a light switch. It stays on until you push the button again and turns it off. Momentary function is going to activate, once you push the button, it's going to activate for as long as that sound file, if it's a sound, till that sound file runs to its end. if it's like a light, if I hooked up a light to the momentary or set the light function to a momentary function, it would be on only as long as I push the button. A duration function, I've never used it.
That's a timed function. So
I think that's the runtime function is the timed function.
Well, I think the duration is, I thought there was a sub menu at one point where it'll ask how long you need it to run for. But I could be wrong. It's been a while since I looked at that part.
It's been a while since I looked at it too. And actually the runtime function doesn't even have any option in it. So the duration function must be the duration that we were talking about. Runtime function may be in there in the future. Sometimes they put stuff in here for programming in the future or something they plan on coming out with that will use it. So that's what those, and the test will test the sound that I selected, like the air pump. So that's what that does. Hopefully that answers your question.
There's a comment that says the runtime function is activated by S88s connected to it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not really too sure. I know the thing is that within the S88, you can actually program delays itself for how long you want something to run. But actually, yeah, that might make sense. That's something for us to explore. Generally, as it goes, when we do have sound functions that are entered into, or in my case, usually when I use a sound function in an event, which is triggered by an S88, the sound function itself needs a distinct on and off command, and it doesn't really sort of play well with the runtime, certain runtime functions, unless this is the solution to that. So again, we might have to look into that to see what it is. Another question is, CS3, does the CS3 also have the temperature setting as the MS2 does? What's the use for? Rick, you have an answer to that one?
Let you know if it's too hot.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly don't know if I've seen that in the CS3. Yeah, it's one of those areas I haven't really looked at.
You can get a temperature of your boosters, your central station. That way you know if there's something wrong.
Let's see. There's a question. I don't know. Let's see. If there's a derailment of a train, I'm assuming the stop bar light goes on and the error message displays on the central station. But when I hit the stop light off, the locomotives run too fast and cause a collision. Why do the locos run too fast?
It depends on what locomotive it is. And specifically, it depends on the decoder that's in it. I don't have that. I haven't seen that problem in MFX decoders. Well, I can't say that. I have seen that once, and the decoder was malfunctioning, and I had to replace it. It was a decoder failure. But in general, that's usually a third-party decoder, and in the settings of that, they have to be modified. I can't be specific because I don't know what decoder or where to do it because it's not a Marklin product. And Zev said, try change the duration now and see what happens. Where you're not going to be able to see it, but I did do it, Zev. And if I turn the light on the 241, and now it turned off. And you can see the controller, it turned off. So the duration, I put the duration to 5, and that's what it does. So it stays on for however many increments. It might be, the 5 might be 5 seconds. It might not. Yeah, it's close to seconds. So that's what the duration does.
Okay, here's a quick one. Pete asks, no worries, we have a 37484
Yes.
The function has got a switching range turtle function.
Yes.
What is that?
The switching range is, it cuts down the speed, and I believe it turns off the acceleration, brake, and delay. It cuts down the speed to half of, I believe it is, of what the dial is set for. And it's for switching. It's for coupling and uncoupling of cars, so you don't ram into them. Got to remember to set my duration back to a switching function for my headlights here.
All right. Well, currently we don't have any questions lined up. So do you have anything you want to sort of go over on the CS3?
No, I mean, this is all we were prepared for. So, I mean, unless you want to get a little deeper into it.
Well, basically what you covered, we're just covering the locomotive entry points. Why don't we go over a little bit on the adding of articles?
Add articles, okay. Yeah. I don't have anything set up, but I can show how to add it, but I can't do a physical part of it. Once you get your article, it's basically like adding a locomotive. You can go to the plus and add it here, or you can go to the edit screen, and then it would be edit. Oh, I'm sorry, add article. Get out of this. Add article, and we'll add a turnout. Okay, so it gave me this one that's highlighted in blue, the W1. That's just the default. Right there. I can change the name just like everything else. 1, 2, 3. Protocol is Marklin Motorola or DCC. The turnout motors can be set to DCC or Marklin Motorola. The address, it gives me 8, and it searches for the lowest address that it can find. 8 is the lowest address. If it gives it to you, or if you punch in a number that's red, it is telling you, the red tells you that it is already occupied. You can still use it, but you have to know that it's occupied. Switching time is 200 milliseconds. I can make it a right or left turn. I can make, well, there is no Y in Marklin. 3-way turnout, I can switch it to whatever I want, double slip. So let's see, I can give it, well, let's stick with turnouts. If you're doing something else, it can be common. It can be a light. It can be light signals, the semaphore, miscellaneous. The arrow to the right gives you the decoder settings. A multi-decoder is a M83 or K83. Installation decoder, for the installation decoder, an installation decoder is the decoder that you put in the turnout, underneath the turnout. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to refer to the manual, because old installation decoder and new installation decoder are a little bit confusing in the central station. Just refer to the manual to set these decoder dip switches correctly. And that is basically it. It's that simple. The left-hand turnout. I get out of edit mode, and here's the left-hand turnout that I created. If I want to, I'm getting ahead of myself, and I really shouldn't here.
Okay, well, let me, I can interrupt you here because I do have a couple of questions that are somewhat related. The first question is, I purchased the new 74462 digital decoder. That's a turnout decoder for, I think it's a 3-way. Let me look it up here again.
No, 62 is just the new, it's just the new decoder.
Okay, it's a new decoder. It's a MFX. It says it didn't register MFX, so you had to enter it manually. The second question is, are turnouts detected automatically? If I had turnouts and turned CS3 back on, will the CS3 detect and list the new turnouts?
What you have to do is you have to go to edit, and then discover MFX items.
Yeah.
And it will ask you this: would you like to search for MFX accessories? Click OK for yes. If such an item is found, then the item is get a new address, keep its address. So you have to really know. And what it's asking you is keep its address. You're supposed to set the decoder dip switches. Even though it's MFX, you still have to set the decoder switches to the address you want. Just, I'm not sure exactly why, but it does make a little bit of sense. That way it will put it in the place you want it if you select keep its address. Also down the road, if you're doing some troubleshooting and you look at the dip switches and they're not set to the address it's set for, it's just going to cause confusion. So you should probably just set it to the address you want, again, referring to the manual, and go ahead and keep this address. That way everything's all squared away. And then you click OK. It will go through its search. Unfortunately, it's not going to find anything, but it will go through this search. I should say right now, don't have one hooked up to the track, so it will not find anything. And it'll just go through its process here and then be done with it, tell me it couldn't find it. But it should find it there if you have a new MFX device.
There is a follow-up question. After discovering, would it place the article on the diagram, the track diagram?
No, it doesn't. That was just what I was about to get into. Here you have to edit trackboard page, and this is getting a little bit farther ahead because we haven't covered this in a webinar too much. Curtis did a little bit last time, and all you do is you drag and drop again where you want it. And there it's on my article, it's on my layout page, and I can switch it. And then you connect the lines and all that, but that's definitely not something we're going to cover here.
Yeah, there are two methods to sort of accomplishing what you want. Let me share my screen really quickly.
Okay, let me stop sharing.
Yes, and share. So essentially what Rick was referring to is you were basically going under the edit button here, and you're adding your article directly into this. When you do this method, it places the article in your inventory, your article inventory. The other method, which, you know, unfortunately it did get a little lost because it's confusing unless you're actually working with the system, is that if you actually go into the edit trackboard page instead, and you have an edit button here, and I don't know if this has to search for an MFX device in this menu system.
No, this is just for the lines basically that you're going to draw between.
Yeah, this was redesigned. So you do have a turnout menu here. You see this on the right?
Oh yeah.
So before, you used to be able to at least add the article here, and it would place it in the article list as well as place it in your trackboard page. I think, you know, I'd give it a try just to verify. We haven't really done it. Our layouts are kind of half established, and, you know, we'd have to delete and then test it again. But
these might be dummy switches. They might just that have
these are manual mode dummy switches.
Yes.
That's why there's no color. Yes. But there used to be at least a setting here where you can add an article with the MFX device. And maybe they removed that for this version of software. Again, we are kind of dealing with the software change. That's probably a few months old. We haven't really explored it properly. So just kind of giving you that idea. All right.
And here's a question that I love to answer.
Okay.
How does the Marklin Crossing Gate 74920 work with the central station? It works independently. I did an article where I did connect it to the central station and have it run in a route. I did that with an older one, and the newer one, you really kind of don't have to unless you have a lot of problems with your track, but then that comes to a maintenance issue of keeping your track clean. But it works independently, basically. The instructions will tell you how to hook it up, and you don't control it with the central station. It works by contact of the rails. through the axle of the locomotive.
All right. Well, let's see. Don't think we have any other questions currently. Can you touch on software updates? Yeah, let's touch on the software updates for the CS3.
How to, or what they are?
I guess, well, what versions are we on right now, I guess? Or how to do it. Let's do both. So.
Okay. Are you hooked up to the, are you hooked up to the internet?
Yes, I am, but I don't have an update of, I think I'm current. You want me to show my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, let's see. Where are you? All right, so where you're dealing with CS3 updates, let's kind of go into my system page here first. Come on, open up. You can view your system here. You can see in the lower right, we have the system button. You can click on the icon here. And to get the info, you basically, you see, let me kind of pull up a notation here. Annotate, sorry guys, give me a second. So basically you have these little triangles here, and these kind of reveal and close panels for you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna close the system panel, and I need to kind of scroll down and click on the info triangle. It gives you an idea what your, whoops, going the wrong way, folks. Gives you an idea what your hardware version is and your software version is. Right now I'm current. But to know this, as long as you're plugged into your router or your internet where you actually have internet connection, and let's go back up to the top again to the system tab. This green arrow, this green dot here, and sorry, this green dot here will turn red, and that red dot's going to tell you have a system update. And in this area here to the right, there will be an icon which I can't display because my system is current. It kind of looks like, I think, this, which is very nondescript. You click on that, and that's going to initialize and start your update. Just be aware that when that happens, more times than not, once you're updated, you may see another red dot, probably in the TFP, either this section, I think it was usually.
Yeah.
And there are subsystem updates. So when you see a red icon, which usually appears in this lower corner here, that will tell you that section needs an update as well. And go ahead and initialize that. It's the same procedure. You'll have an update start button here. All right. I think that covers that.
All right. And go down to the info. 4.1. I'm sorry. That's.
Let me get into the info page here. Let's see, right there. That's the
there you
info.
go. 2.1.0 parentheses 2. That's the current version. And let's see. We have a question. Another question I love to answer. What's the best way to clean track of a fairly large layout and have horrible contact issues? Well, first off, you need to make sure your wheels are clean on your locomotives. If they stop in different areas, then it's your wheels, not your track. But what we use to clean track, it's what Tom Catherall told us, and we had a little bit of a hard time believing it at first, but we found out he was right, as he usually was. You use kerosene. So kerosene is smoke fluid. Literally, it is smoke fluid. It's not the flavored smoke fluid. It is just standard smoke fluid. So even if you buy the LGB smoke fluid, it says on the bottle that it's a cleaner also. So a rag and a little bit of kerosene, and it will clean the track. You don't have to clean the center studs, but you do have to clean your track. All right.
Okay, and if you didn't see this in the chat, can you connect the crossing gate to a K83 or similar device to control it digitally?
Yes, I answered that. Yeah.
Yeah, we just kind of verbally say it. So Basically, I think you would actually use an M84 or K84 because it needs sort of constant voltage for the magnets to kind of hold down. But yeah, you can control it digitally, entering it into a route or an event script.
The new crossing gate is wired a little bit different. The old one is, again, it's not easy to do, but it needs modifications, the old one. The new one, I believe you can easily wire it in, because instead of going to the contact tracks with the wires, the insulated rail, you just go to a M84 and control it that way. So it is fairly easy, even though it's wired different than an old grade crossing. The old grade crossing you have to take apart. And no, you don't have to take it apart. You do not have to take it apart. I did, and I have articles about it, how I did it, but I wanted the lights to flash and then the gates to come down, rather than both of it happening at the same time. So I did separate the two circuits, and I had to take it apart. And Lewis says track cleaning cars. Yes, track cleaning cars will work, but depending on the track cleaning car, there are some brands that work better than others. Marklin's track cleaning cars are just basically heavy cars with a pad on them to clean the track, and they work well. But if you get some stubborn oil buildups, it will take a while for those to clean up the track. Some kerosene is yellow, which indicates higher sulfur content. Not sure if that would be a problem. Yeah, I'm not sure either. The stuff we get is just over-the-counter, regular kerosene from the hardware store, and you buy the quart of it, and it will last a lifetime.
Also, it's the majority of the chemical. It's in smoke fluid.
Yes, yes. So
you can use it as smoke fluid. There was a question about the updates. Does Marklin send out a notification that there are updates, or is it pretty much noticeable? Yeah, it's pretty much noticeable, but you do have to have your router. You do have to have your CS3 connected to a router before you power it up. Otherwise, in the boot up procedure, it doesn't get an IP number, and it does not communicate. So be sure your router is plugged into the CS3 before you power it up when you want to check for updates.
Yes. Now, Lewis just asked, going back to the track cleaning, no alcohol to clean gunk. Well, I don't know if Curtis, you remember this, but I kept telling you alcohol, it will work. It will clean off everything on the track. It will get it nice and clean. But Curtis and I had a session. It took me a while to convince him, from what I remember, that alcohol will still make the locomotive stall in that spot until it runs through about 15 times. I think we finally figured out about 15 times it ran through, then it finally went through. Alcohol does have a little bit of water in it, unless you get the 99%. 70% is going to be 30% water. It does clean the oil off, but what we found was the kerosene does leave a slight residue that conducts electricity better than no residue at all, that which is dependent on clean wheels, absolutely clean wheels. So that's why we recommend the kerosene, and also, like we said, it's smoke fluid. So
yeah, don't use beer. That kind of alcohol will not work on your layout.
Yeah, that's got way too much water in it. Gugon, I've never tried Gugon. I heard it works good. Obviously, if you have a large buildup of something, you do need to get it off the track first, and whatever you may have to use, you have to use. I would not recommend sandpaper, emery cloth, and by George, never ever use steel wool on any track, no matter what. So that's our 2 cents.
Yeah, I know, like for LGB track, there are probably a little more abrasive methods, mostly because that stuff, if it sits outdoors, you're subjected to, I think, higher degrees of oxidation.
Also, LGB track is brass, so even if you use sandpaper on the Marklin track, which is stainless steel, I am not sure how ferrous it is, whether it's a stainless steel coating or if it's solid stainless steel. Stainless steel is generally not a ferrous metal, believe it or not, but if it's just coated with stainless steel, the metal that is underneath is usually ferrous. So using any kind of abrasive on a track, HO track, is not generally good. LGB track, because it is brass, it wouldn't matter. Obviously, you don't want a high grit, you want a fine grit. And don't use it on HO.
All right.
A person with track issues in cleaning might have a power distribution problem. Yes, that's always true. More feed wires is always good. We use feed wires every 6 feet-ish, 6 to 8 feet. Distribution panels, it never hurts to have more track feeds. And Barry Herman says, can you use automatic transmission fluid? No, I would not use that. Transmission fluid will eat the plastic roadbed of C-track. It will eat the plastic ties of the LGB track. Eventually, transmission fluid is a little bit caustic.
All right. Any other questions? Anything else we can present here?
I haven't seen anyone raise their hand. I'm not sure if that function is
No, it's available.
working.
Oh, there's a couple people raising hands.
All right.
Would you like to speak?
Yeah, let's get some people to talk.
All right, go ahead, Lewis. You gotta, unless you have a microphone, you need to unmute your mic.
Okay, does it work? Just testing.
Yes,
we can
it
hear
does work.
Thank you guys for doing this. It is very good. I'm extremely a novice. I've been not messing around with the CS2, and I've got the other one in a box. And I'm one of these guys who actually lays out the track and plays around with layouts. They're all over the floor. So that's my question about connecting different switches. As I'm playing around, and my layouts are a total mess, but I just want to see how the switches work. But this has been very, very helpful. And I thank you guys very much, and I hope you continue to do it.
All right, great. You're welcome. Yeah, we'll be happy to. All right, we're going to take another live question from Dean. Is that correct? All right. Dean, if you have a microphone, you're welcome to unmute your mic and ask your question. Oops.
Dean, maybe Dean doesn't have a question. Oh, maybe.
All right, we do have a question from Paul in the meantime. When terminating events, locos do not want to run afterwards. Complete shutdown and restart is the only solution I found. Is there a trick? Yeah, Paul, there could be there. You know, the thing is, if you have events that are not basically terminating, this gets complex, so I won't get too far into it. We do have to watch out for events that have either conflicting reports or as some of our users do, they've tried to use the record button. In other words, they're programming their events in live real time. And the problem is that, when it comes to events, we like to have maybe the events happen immediately. We're on one right after the other. But when you're searching around on your page and it's taking you maybe like 10, 15 seconds to find the next, switch to turn, it's actually recording those 15 seconds. So what you may not be aware of is it's got all these delays that are piling up in your script. And let's say if it took you 5 minutes to program the whole event, that script's not going to complete for 5 minutes. So there's methods that are written in the newsletter. And again, I don't want to get too far into it. It's best not to use the drag and drop method. Pull your events down from the timeline, just add them in there. Don't use the recording button. It's a lot simpler. It's easier to add a delay rather than deleting delays from every step. So we can continue this on an email rather than going live with that, but hopefully that gives you an answer.
I'm gonna let Klaus talk here.
Yep.
So Klaus, if you want to unmute your microphone. No?
Here we go.
There we go. Hi, Klaus.
Hey, I have no questions, but I just wanted to say hello, Rick, and hello, Curtis. And I am a first timer on your program, and I really appreciate it. And I wanted to thank you. And it's a great forum. And next time I will have some questions. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Great, Klaus. Thanks.
Nice talking to you, Klaus.
Is there a longer brown red wire that connects to the central station, the C track?
Yeah, there's a supplemental feed wire set, or you can make your own, basically.
Yeah, let's see. If you want, let's see. We have an MS2 that will periodically have its screen go dim. We don't have control of the locomotive. The MS2 restarts. What do you think that is, sir?
What power supply are they using? We have an issue with the CS2 using the switch mode power supply. When you get a short, it's not that the central station is rebooting, it's the power supply is resetting, which basically it's like unplugging your central station. So for a central station 2, we recommend a transformer, the old style transformer. It will not happen there, even though I have heard somebody had it the opposite, and I can't figure out why. But if the light is or the backlight is going dim, and you can't control the locomotives without rebooting, I would say it's getting ready to fail.
Norbert does ask, is there anything else we should know about in the system menus, tips, or tricks? You know, frankly, the tip about knowing when you have a system update is going to be probably the most common basic one. After that, we start getting into some pretty advanced stuff. So I think it's contextual. Don't necessarily answer that. Like master-slave connections, not everybody's going to do that. Setting up your S88s or your L88s, that requires certain information, but again, not everybody has those. So I'd love to answer that question, but I think it's a little too broad at this point. Just the main thing is know when you have an update. That does solve a lot of questions, especially with like MFX locomotives not registering. Making sure your system is current. It's the best thing you can do. All right. Let's see.
Robert, got it.
Trackbox. Mike Krikos, is there a way to reset an M83 to default condition?
Yeah. That's kind of a excuse me, it's kind of a loaded question because the M83 came out and it was not MFX, and now they are MFX. And obviously the easier one to do is the MFX version, the current version. The simple answer is CV8 to value of 8, but it can sometimes be difficult to do that. And I won't go through the process of how to do that if it's the non-MFX version, because basically when you look in the CVs, it doesn't give you a CV8. You have to enter a CV8 with a value of 8. So you have to kind of manually force it. It's really hard to say. It'd probably be best if you gave us a call or whatnot and we can try it. But I know what you mean, that you didn't mess it up, but you want to get back because you've edited so much on it. Get back to the specs and start over. I've done the same thing, so don't feel bad. Curtis and I have done a lot of screw ups and figuring out how to fix our screw ups.
You more than me.
I do the screwing up, he does the fixing. But yeah, we've learned a lot by doing that, so don't feel bad. We tell people all the time, it's like, yeah, we've done
we all
that.
mess up. Yeah.
It's like installing a decoder. Nobody installs decoders without blowing some up.
The only thing that's going to make your head smoke is if you blow up a sound decoder.
Yes.
Okay, we do have one question. Can I use the same power supply I'm currently using to feed my CS2 to feed a new CS3? Well, Let's see. Historically, no, because the CS2 wasn't under EU regulations, and you could use a transformer with it. So that's the key. Is your power supply a switch mode power pack, or is it a transformer? CS2s can operate under transformers. The CS3, even though it will power up, will not operate. You need a switch mode power pack to operate the CS3. The funny thing is, I actually pulled one out earlier, realizing I had the wrong power supply. So this was the power supply. It's a transformer that I used for the CS2. The part number on this is 66185. You can't use this with the CS3. You can use it with any transformer. The old CS2 still work with that, not the CS3. Can the Marklin infrared wireless controller be added for use on a larger layout with several locomotives?
Okay.
We assume so.
There's two ways to answer that.
Go ahead.
First off, use a tablet. There you go. Second off, the wireless infrared controller was a 6021 era controller. I believe you can if you use the Connect 6021, the 60128 module, which connects to the left side, I believe, of your 6021. I believe it will work because at that point, the 6021 is a slave. You won't have all the MFX functions. You only have 4 functions on a locomotive. So all in all, it goes back to it's easier with a tablet.
Okay, the Marklin, let's see, with the power supplies, do you remember the number 60045 and 60055? Were those switch modes?
60055 is a standard transformer. The 60045...
Probably also a transformer. It's an older number.
I want to say that's the current switch mode.
All right, let me plug it in, see what it is. That's a switch mode power pack. 60045 is a switch mode power pack. So yeah, you can use that with the CS3. 60055 is a transformer. So that one you cannot use.
That one yes.
Yeah. Question, if I do a full back of my CS2 to a USB stick, can I restore it to a CS3 to bring over all my locomotives and the layout diagram? The answer to that one,
yes.
You know, the software in the CS3 has changed so that they now actually have similar diagrams rather than using just the current CS3 diagram that everybody's familiar with. When we first got our CS3, we did exactly the same thing. We tried to port over all the data from the CS2. We ran into the layout problems. It did not transfer the layout very well at all. In that instance, it was easier just to restart and rebuild it from that point. With the new screening, I can't verify if it's easier, but there is some problems. The thing is that it could be a jumbled mess. You're going to spend more time trying to fix that mess rather than just building it from scratch. As far as the data on the locomotives, again, I think it's been 4 years since we did that. It worked fairly well, but it's kind of a no-brainer if you have a lot of MFX locomotives, just let them re-register. It makes it easier to do sort of the FX decoders or the manual ones. You know, and you do have other methods. You can transfer stuff over using the memory cards. That might make it a little simpler. There's no harm in trying. I think in that case, and this is something that I can show you really quick, just maybe as a method to do. Let me go back to my screen on the CS3 here. Whoops, where is it? It's over here on the right. Okay. So when you, just so you kind of, if you're going to do this, transfer data over, I would first save what you have. Okay, so go to the system screen and do a save, a data save. And even though you don't have anything in it, let's say, just save that, give it a name, because it's going to give you this default name. At the top, you can see in blue, it says CS3 backup 001. Well, that's not going to tell you what it is. You know, give it a name like, oh, your default screen, your beginning screen. That way you can always refer back to it and reload it. save this, and then, and I'm just going to cancel it out because there's no reason for me to save it. Then what you can do is you can load up your USB data from the CS2, right? And if it seems to work to some degree, go ahead and save another version. Just save it as, you know, CS3 with CS2 data, so you know that's what it is. That way you can edit it and tweak it and see if it works for you in the long run, and do a save, whatever you make changes that seem to be working. And then you're good, because then it doesn't matter if you save or change it out. You always have this to fall back onto. If you find out that it doesn't work, just trash that file and just save another system and just load it, save that beginning point and just load up the system manually. So you do have that option, and it's could probably make it easier for you to handle in the long run. Okay.
Okay, Sig has a question that is, what decoder do I use when upgrading my F7 locomotives? What MFX decoder? Well, that all depends. What F7 it is, you know, I generally install the 21 pin sound decoders. I'm assuming you want a sound decoder. If you don't want a sound decoder, you can still do a 21 pin. The problem comes in programming it. If you don't have the programmer, your dealer might be able to pre-program it for you. You can download the profile from the Marklin site if you have the programmer and load it yourself. You can edit it. But again, that's probably going to be something you may want to ask offline, so to say, ask us offline or your dealer. You are most likely, if it's an older model, you're going to have to change the motor to a 60941 motor kit. You'll need two of them if it's got two motors. And that's about it. Anyone else?
Does CS3 allow operation of a test track and the layout track in the same CS3? How do you switch between the two? Yeah, there's ways you can do that. Let's see if I can. I know that my screen wasn't sharing properly last time. Let's try it again here. Share.
Basically, the test track can be incorporated into your layout, and it should be insulated from the rest of the layout.
Yeah, it's going to require some kind of, I mean, yeah, if you want to incorporate it where it's viewable on the screen, that's kind of what I thought you were going with. Let's see. The sharing on this may not work the way we actually want it to, just because we're opening sub windows, but let's give it a shot. This might be a little more complex than we want to do. We're going to edit a trackboard page. Let's sort of add. Let's add anything random here. I think will work. Okay. Yes, this is going to be messy. Well, basically, there's two ways to do it. I don't really want to draw this out. You can either have it all in one trackboard page. If you need more than one trackboard page, there's a button up above where it says track diagram area. You can add another trackboard. Okay, and that's the add TDCB section. I haven't played much with the add control desk, but it's probably a sub window as well. Now, the thing is, just like turnouts that are added to layouts, if you see over here, there's a thing called board links. And right now, I only have one trackboard. Let me add another one here and just give it another name. Test track one. I actually add a couple here. I don't know if you guys can see this.
Yeah, I can see it typing.
Okay, so I'm actually going to add two trackboards here. Track 2. Okay, so overall, let me quickly get out of this here, edit mode, because it's screen real estate stuff. So essentially what's going on here is I have three trackboard sections. That's the start pack, that's the default. Track 2 that I just added and hidden behind here because I'm not in edit mode. Let me get it visible. Whoops. Okay, I also have track 1. Now, assuming we've drawn a different track layout section in each of these grids, what you can do is under the, let's see, we're going to add a section here, and you can see over here it says board links. My blue outline here is track 1, and I can create a board link that's going to link me directly to one of these 2 other trackboard diagram pages. So that's a quick 1-button solution if you need to go to another page. Let me add, hopefully that adds it. Let's see here. Okay. The old drag and drop functionality just doesn't quite want to agree with me here. Let me do this on the laptop. Okay. All right. So you can see I kind of dragged it onto track 2, which somehow it doesn't see. It seems backward to me. But when you're actually operating mode, and let's say you're just viewing this screen, I'll zoom in, maybe make it easier. And you need to go to another section, you click on the icon and it would take you to, you see how this one is kind of blacked out. It didn't really, it's linking to itself. But essentially you create these links to go between trackboard pages, and hopefully that makes it a little easier, or you understand the question, or I understand the question and you understand the answer. So, all right. So hopefully that answered that question. Okay. Anything else? Let's see. We do have a comment. He says you can see the CS3 screen, but not the dialogues you were talking about. Yeah, unfortunately, it's probably a failing on the Zoom where it'll only open. It will only share the one window. It wouldn't share the sub windows. But unless I kind of go back and sharing, we can maybe try another method here. I hate this experimenting when we're going live here. Let's try this screen. This could be disorienting, folks. So again, let's see if we can do this. Does this show the sub windows?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's try it this way, folks. I'm going to go edit trackboard page. Now, I'm currently selected on track 2. That's the blue outline here. And if I want to add a link, see now my options are I can go to trackboard 1, or I can go to the start packing. That's the default layout. So let's just kind of click this. And you can see it's not really responding because I'm actually controlling it through my laptop. See if I can do this here this way. Yeah. So I dragged it over from this on the Central Station 3. I dragged it over here. I have 2 links here now. And I'm going to get out of edit mode. So right now, my currently viewed screen is track 2. And this is labeled. You can add a label to it. It doesn't have one. You can see the dotted lines. It indicates that I'm on track 2. I can click on that, and now it shifts me right over to the dotted lines around track 1. And that's how you can shift between trackboard pages. How do you draw tracks? Need to make them straight and curved. That's always a little tricky, especially with, it depends on what method you're using.
Once you get into the other screen, so you go full screen on that.
All right, yeah, let me go. Well, the thing is that if I need to show the sub pages, it's not going to be visible. So let me go full screen here.
There you go.
And let me go back to edit page.
Yeah. You just cover the basics.
Yeah. Let me drag this up here so it's full. So the thing is, the first thing you're going to need to do is obviously you need to have turnouts, and let's see if I can drag a couple in here.
There's going to be manual turnout. Oh, you don't have any in your.
Yeah, this is terrible because it's just not responding on the share very well. Let's see. Let's kind of get out of here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to go to a page. I'm going to change the layouts here. So this is kind of what I mean when you can actually go back to layouts that you have in action. let's just pick up some kind of random one. Hopefully I have something with track in it, and that just makes it easier. So let's try that one. My system is going to restart. Sorry, I may be missing it. There's some questions here on the YouTube stream that I need to get to. And this layout does not have a plan either. And fortunately, the one plan I have that I know is too much information for folks. So let's
go to start config, and that'll give you a brand new.
Well, oh yeah, that's right. Let's see. That's the start config. Staging start config. Thank you, Rick. Okay. Let's get rid of these. All right, so this is basically your starting layout. Let me pull down this so we can go into edit mode, and it's in German, and I missed the edit, so we're going to proceed in German, folks. So essentially, when you're changing layouts, you're building track plans. Let's disconnect it. You see these black handles here. Those are your connection points on each turnout. Now, how those are connected, they're generally automatic. So let me disconnect that. And I recommend using a USB mouse connected to your CS3 because you sort of need more precision than you would with your fingers. But let's say I want to drag WL2. I want to connect. I need to connect this line here to this line here, obviously, right? So what you want to do is you actually want to click on this device first, and so that you view these handles. And these are just connecting one device to the next. Now the thing is, watch, you see how I drag around? Different areas are being highlighted. And if you connect to the wrong one, don't release the mouse until you actually see that blue circle that's going around the connection point that you want. Now you notice how we have sort of a nice curve here. And that's because they're using these additional elements that are called routes. And let's see if I can pull that up so you can see that function. So that is that under articles?
Yeah.
So again, sorry that I'm showing the German screen.
Right
Oh, here
there.
it is. This here, it's basically going to be a track routing icon. And if I pull that out, and unfortunately pulling things on the screen is not working the way I want it to. So that makes it frustrating. But essentially what it looks like is it looks like this. And I'm going to disconnect these points. Okay. Whoops. See, what it did was it automatically jumped to the wrong side. See? That's why you always have to be sure you see that blue outline. Because if I drag too far, it like this one here, it's going to connect to the turnout and give me that odd turn. And right now it just picked up something random. So there's,
You picked up one of those anchor points.
yeah, it picked up it probably added an anchor point that I didn't want. So we're going to pull that out and disconnect it altogether. And it's just, so it gets a little fidgety, guys. So don't, obviously it can be frustrating, and it happens. It's just auto feeding. So this is generally what it looks like. But use these track routes to refine your shapes. Now there's two things that have been improved in the software, and that's at the top here, and it's called Rouse. They call it raster. And that, let me just show you where that is. It's right up here at the top. It's raster in this version of the software, which is really funny because the latest update, they now call it a grid, because I kind of complained. I said, it's not a raster in English. It's actually called a gridlock. So if I actually made the language change correctly before I actually okayed the button, it would actually say grid, not raster. What that does is it will help align your items. So it's going to align it either on the vertical or the horizontal. So right now I grabbed a connection point here, which was frustrating. Let me see if I can grab the turnout. And now when I actually move it over here, it gets lined up perfectly with this left one here. Whoops. All right.
Yes, in English, it's grid on and off.
Yeah, in English is grid on off, and unfortunately, I can't really. It's hard to demonstrate on an online form, but I definitely play with it. Those are probably going to be the quick ways to do that. Again, use a mouse. It makes it easier to deal with. Let's see. Did I lose a window?
That's it for the questions.
I think I lost the chat window somewhere. We do have. Let's see what we have. Okay, user. Is there Gerald Lynch, is there a power supply for the CS3 at 110 volt for large scale? Yes, there is. That's the, do you remember the part number on that one?
60195 is the 5 amp power supply for G gauge.
Okay. And let's see, any other questions? Let me scroll down.
Yeah, question and answer, Lewis.
I lost the chat window here. Okay.
Lewis says, will the layout diagram tool also select the Marklin track parts that will fit? Do you recommend any track layout software? Yeah. The layout diagram that he was showing just now was drawing in the central station. It's not going to give you track pieces. It's just a representation of your layout. And as far as the track design software we use, I know there's a couple other ones, but we've used, I just had it, now I lost it. What do we use? Well, WinTrack.
Marklin has the program that they license through WinTrack.
Yes.
And that's what you're using. And that's pretty good. I never know what their versioning is. I know the commercial version of WinTrack is kind of way past the version that's been available, or I don't know if they've updated through the license with Marklin.
Right, but the Marklin version, I don't think it's for a Mac. I think there is one out there for a Mac. Somebody was mentioning it to me a couple weeks ago, but I forget the name. But I think there is one that will work on a Mac.
Yes.
Peter just says Rail Modeler Pro.
Zev uses something called Trax, T-R-A-X.
Or Express. It's
Express.
Free.
That's I guess that's a free version.
Rail Modeler Pro works with a Mac. Good. Look at this. Trax is web-based. Of course, everyone's getting these chats, so I don't know why we're reading them.
Yeah. Hey, read your own messages. Let's see. Somebody has a question on the crane in the background there. So,
Mine?
Yeah.
The digital crane?
Mm-hmm.
Where's that question?
From John. Is your crane on your layout behind you a digital crane?
I don't even see that. That is a digital crane. That is the 7651 standard crane, but unfortunately it does need a new decoder, which is not made anymore. But I did phone a friend, so to say, and I have a brand new one that I have not put in yet. And this is gonna just be a spare crane that I have, because I already have one in the box. So I still don't see that question, but
that was in the, yeah, that was
being I do repairs, I'm always looking out for items like this that are no longer available and hard to find. If you search on the secondary market, eBay or whatever, somebody had one on there for $225, which is more than the entire crane is worth. So I happened along a friend that had one that didn't need it. Any more questions? Anybody?
I do not see anything yet. If you have an analog crane, you can convert the motors with the 60906 decoders.
Yes.
And it also has MFX capabilities. So that's just a comment.
And then it's a matter of entering it into your central station. And I haven't actually done that, but I've always been curious about it.
Does the CS3 track layout permit various levels, high and low?
That's a different track diagram pages.
Yeah, that's basically what you want to do is you actually want to put levels on different track boards and link them all together as was described earlier. Yeah, don't take your layout and put it all on one track board. Part of the problem may be that, you know, every time if something's going on in the distance, you're going to have to drag that screen around just to get to that section. And if you have like a lot of like mainline runs where there's nothing going on, you don't really need to program that in. You can just kind of set up different trackboard pages and create links between the trackboard pages. It actually works pretty quickly, especially, you know, as a user, you're going to know your layout best, and it may work faster that way. All right. Any other questions here? Can I use the 66367 with the CS3 to run my Marklin 1 gauge? I think we're gonna have to look at that part here. 66367. Is that an LGB product?
I am not familiar with that number. Is that the 220 version? Doesn't make sense if it's 220.
LGB train set transformer controller. You know, I'd probably say, ooh, that's a good question, but I would say I'd be cautious about that. To me, it seems like that transformer is, that power is an analog. It's not a switch mode power pack. So my answer would probably be no. You have to use a switch mode power pack, not the transformer type device. Can you see these various levels simultaneous for multi-train operation? Yeah, unfortunately, it's just really how you lay out your screen, whether or not you push windows around. I can kind of maybe see if I can display that really quickly.
And also, again, on a tablet, it's a little easier.
Yeah, let me set up my window here using my layout here. And that might make it easier to explain or to show. So I'm not going to share it yet, but let me just kind of load that up. So load system, restore, and let's see. Undo our space. Sing amongst yourselves, folks. Oh, where's the layout? Come on, where'd you go? I get so many files here. I got to remember where my layout is. CS3. Let's try that one. All right. Hopefully, get out of the German side because I had no idea.
Dave is asking, what options are there to remotely control a CS3 with higher resolution display? Maybe the web portal or a tablet. Yes, this whole time we've been talking about tablets, Dave. Use a tablet. It's wireless.
Now we'll start getting snarky.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. Where's my Zoom meeting here? All right, here you go. So yeah, this isn't the best example because it, unfortunately, this was a backup system, so I didn't save my layout properly. Show the screen. So when you do have, let's say, layers, and this is just an example, folks. It's not really actually how we would do it. But yeah, it's just a matter of how you're going to lay out your screen. Hopefully you can see this where I actually have the two panels.
Mm-hmm.
And let me go into edit mode so I can move these panels around a little bit because they're basically locked in place. Come on, edit trackboard page. So essentially, you know, if you have two layout panels and they're covering each other, you know, your option is you either move it around and scale it down, up or down, or you just create these links so you can get to one or the other. But being able to view, it's really kind of how you configure the page. I mean, obviously this is small enough of a diagram where I can put them side by side. But if they're too large, and again, that's part of the reason why, you know, I don't recommend putting too much into a trackboard if you don't have to. If you can subdivide it and spread out your windows, it just takes a little bit of organization. So let's see. I guess you already answered Dave's question, right? So
Yes.
any questions in here? 66367, I already answered that. Did we mention the power pack for the LGB train? We did, didn't we?
60195. Yes, we did.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions? We're coming up. We got 5 minutes left, folks. Unless you're so tired of us, you can always log out. Q&A, one more question. Yes. Oh, another question about Model Railroader Pro or a comment. So we don't need that. All right. Should we wrap it up here and just say any other comments?
Yeah. You can go ahead and email or call us if you have any other questions. We will always do our best to answer the phone promptly. Sometimes we are on the phone with some other people. So
yeah, if you have any maybe extensive topics that we can cover for you in the upcoming months, you just let us know. Hopefully, there are times, I mean, the system is a computer. Sometimes we get answers wrong due to updates, or sometimes we just get them wrong, and hopefully we can fix those. But overall, those have been our experiences. We do have can help you building layouts. And, I think one of the hardest ones to answer was just laying out the track plan. There's a lot of stuff that's going on there that we have in detail. Check the newsletter out. Make sure if you don't have newsletter articles, let us know. We can make sure you get them. Our next session, when is that planned? We'll do it a monthly right now. We don't have a specific date, and you will get those in either posting through email.
Yeah, we should have a newsletter out in a week or so. I'm not sure if we'll have a scheduled time for another one of these at that point or not, but I'm sure it'll come up. One thing, always remember, shut down your central station. Don't just push the button until it goes dark, and don't just unplug it from the wall.
Yeah, and also, when you're doing, changes and you're adding things to your system, you can't really stress it off. It's not like we need backup data, but because MFX and a lot of folks are not really, we're still not a little used to it. There's things that happen. Save your system, save it under something that you can revert to. It always helps to have a step back that you can revert to rather than having to erase all your changes and additions. And because it really steps well on the CS3, and recommend it. I can't recommend it highly enough. I've done the same thing where I've tried to change things out and I've botched it up and had to start from scratch. You don't want to do that.
Yes, we tell you because we've done it.
There is one question here. Yes, we have an index at the January issue for the previous year. This was sort of overlooked this year. Wasn't added onto the tail end of the newsletter. We do have a master index that we can send to anybody who wants that, but send us an email because it's a link that we're going to send you. It does sort of cover the master index up through the end of 2019. Just haven't entered any of the topics from this year. We definitely appreciate you folks coming and visiting, or at least listening to us.
And watching us.
Yeah, and it's always good to hear from, or at least see the names out here. I do notice we have some visitors from Ireland, and if I go by the names alone, I could say, hey, there's some people from France here, but heck, I don't know. All right. Any other thing? I don't see any other questions. Yeah, just send us an email. The email address again is digital@marklin.com. And you do have our calls. Most of the numbers is available in the digital newsletter, and definitely we hope to hear from you guys again or visit us in the future.
Yep. So with that, I think we should sign off and say goodbye.
You guys are very welcome, and have a good afternoon. Stay safe.
Yes.